In the years and months before the 9/11 attacks in 2001, few Americans had even heard of Osama bin Laden or al-Qaeda, and many inside government who knew about the terror network saw it only as a distant foreign threat. But not Richard Clarke, a senior White House national security official, who famously tried to get the attention of the Bush administration about what he predicted accurately was a serious threat to the country. Clarke is no longer in the government, but he's still very much involved in his own company and as a consultant to ABC News. And today, Richard Clarke joins us with his analysis of where things stand 9 years later. Richard Clarke, thank you very much for being here. How would you say we stand 9 years later in terms of the threat from al-Qaeda?
Well, you have to distinguish among the al-Qaedas now, because after 9/11, it somewhat morphed into a whole series of organizations. So we refer to al-Qaeda Central now as the bin Laden organization that attacked us on 9/11. And al-Qaeda Central is a very, very small shadow of what it used to be. There may be as few as 50 of them in Afghanistan, maybe somewhere between 100 and 200 of them in Pakistan, and they try to mount operations elsewhere directly, but for the most part they're on the run from a stepped-up series of attacks in Pakistan now using the Predator drones. Essentially since June of 2008, but much more so after the Obama administration came into office, there have been a series of attacks that have wiped out leaders of al-Qaeda Central. And there are very few of the old guard left around, although bin Laden and his number two still are around.
Do you think it's important at this point to continue to go after bin Laden and Ayman al-Zawahiri?
Well, I think it's very important. It's important because we owe that debt to the families of the victims of his various attacks. It's also important because they are symbols to the jihadist world, to the Islamist extremist world. They're symbols of success against the United States. And the fact that they're able to still be out there, even though America is looking for them, is a sign of their strength. So it's very important that we take them out.
So why can't we find those two men? 9 years later, they're still at large, still believed to be alive and in some role in al-Qaeda.
Well, I think the reason we can't find bin Laden is that he has very much gone to ground, and my personal opinion is he's probably not in the area of northwestern Pakistan where we're looking for him. You know, the truth is that U.S. intelligence hasn't really had a fix on his location since November of 2001. And then we saw him walk across the border into Pakistan. We really don't know where he went after that. Now, his number two, Zawahiri, we do believe has popped up from time to time, even recently, in Pakistan. But the two of them don't have to be in the same place.
And where do you think bin Laden is, in your own view?
Well, he could be elsewhere in Pakistan. He could be up in the Kashmir area. He could be up in the border area near China. Or he could have left Pakistan altogether and gone to Yemen. There are certainly parts of Yemen where the government doesn't know what's going on.
And do you think it's likely he'll ever be found, or he'll just die on natural causes in hiding?
I think it's likely he'll be found. I think we would know if he died because there would be communications with his family and whatnot. I believe he's still alive, and there are reasons to believe that he's still being communicated with by al-Qaeda Central. But they're very careful about how they communicate with him. There's no electronic communications with him. And it's a series of cutouts and runners. Probably 5, 6, 7, or 8 different people have to pass on the message before it ultimately gets to him.
So with his operation, al-Qaeda Central, as you call it, essentially decimated, really down to bare bones, is there still a threat from al-Qaeda? And if so, where's that coming from?
Well, al-Qaeda Central still has people who are trying to organize attacks elsewhere. They have a man named Fadl, who was part of al-Qaeda Central and did attacks on American embassies in 1998 in East Africa. And as recently as last month, he popped up again in an attack, terrible attack in Uganda. So they do have these 1 or 2, 3 or 4 agents. And if those agents can recruit a handful of people and get them some money and get them some plans, they could carry out an attack. It doesn't take a lot of people to carry out an attack.
In 2001, you were convinced something was coming from al-Qaeda, and you couldn't really get the attention of the White House. How do you feel now about it? Is something still coming? Should we be expecting another attack? And is the Obama administration taking the right precautionary steps?
Well, the Obama administration is, as I said, really beating the hell out of al-Qaeda Central in Pakistan, and that makes it difficult for al-Qaeda Central to operate. But I think the threat that the Obama administration is looking for now may come from one of these offshoots, like al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula.
And finally, let me ask you, if there is another attack, a successful attack on an airplane or an attack on a building here in the U.S., will it have the same devastating impact, you think, or are we sort of now accustomed to something like this?
Well, I hope we're accustomed to it. I hope, Brian, that we don't overreact the way we did after 9/11. You know, after 9/11, we eroded civil liberties. We did a lot of things that were counterproductive. And I would hope that this time around, given the fact that we have an administration that's sensitive to those issues, that if there were another attack, that we don't overreact. But, you know, there could be another attack, and it's not necessarily a reflection that we're not doing a good job. You can't do 100% job. No goalie stops every puck from going into the net. And if a goal does get by us, we shouldn't panic.
Richard Clark, thank you very much. We want to know what you think. You can join in on the discussion on Facebook and Twitter. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Brian Ross in New York.